live from my USC dorm, University of Southern California, far away from the action that'll take place. Well, is it really action? It's the NHL draft lottery. Hold on, let me move this a little bit. So, yeah, the NHL draft lottery is in about 15 minutes. At least that's when it's scheduled for. And I mean, it's not an event that, you know, everybody personally, you know, hypes up. It's not a game or anything, but it's a big deal. So I'm excited. I'm just gonna tweet out this link. All right. Welcome back. Just tweeted out the link. Okay. So the NHL draft lottery, I won't be able to show it because it'll be copyrighted, but Sharks have the best odds. I put the odds in the description of this video, but the Sharks have Untouchable Raider, welcome. Yes, we are back. The Sharks have the best odds, 18.5% of securing the number one pick. We all know it's going to be Macklin Celebrini. I'm reporting to you from USC, far away from my hometown Sharks, but not too far. So yeah, as follows, the order before the action takes place. The anticipated order is San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim, Columbus, Montreal, Utah. That's the top six. But realistically, really only teams in that top five have a legitimate chance. But we've seen crazy stuff happen. The Sharks, to recap, last year finished with one of the worst records in the NHL, and they stayed put. They picked fourth, and that was Will Smith, who, obviously is really statistically, him and Macklin Celebrini were the best players in college hockey this past season. But I think getting a guy like Celebrini will elevate the Sharks to, from a prospect standpoint, heights that they'll be in a much better position for. I think Celebrini is a true one center. He's a guy that can play wing as well, and I think the Sharks are kind of lacking, a true center, a true number one line center, and I think Celebrini could be that. Closing in on about 10 minutes or so. ESPN is not showing anything yet, so we'll just talk for a minute. But the Sharks in 2022 got the 11th pick in the draft. They later traded it and picked Philip Beestet, and he's looking like a pretty solid prospect in the AHL. And the year before that, the Sharks got the 7th overall pick in the draft. And that was 2021. They picked William Eklund. And the year before that, Ozzy Weisblatt and Thomas Bordeleau. And that's kind of been the recent, last few drafts. But for the Sharks, it's been a tough past 5 years. Lots of heartbreak, lots of, disappointing finishes, underachieving, tanking, whatever you want to call it. It's been a tough time to be a fan, for sure. So, today is a big day for the Sharks, depending on, if they get the first overall selection or not. This isn't the draft by any means. A lot can happen between now and late June, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's a big day. The Sharks have never had the first overall pick. They've been close, but Patrick Marleau was number 2, and that was forever ago. So yeah, it's gonna start soon, closing in on about 10 minutes or less. But it's gonna be a very exciting time for the Sharks prospects. I know for the team on the ice right now, it looks to be a little. Not a little dim. It looks to be very dim and hard. It's just hard to be a fan, right? But at the end of the day, these things happen to rebuilding teams, and that's what you hope for as a fan. You hope for a successful rebound, and a successful rebuild. And the Sharks they're getting a lot of good pieces. So we're hoping for some success in the future, and I think that all starts with the guys like Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini, if we can get a knock on wood. But obviously, you can't get your hopes up. These are things that are seemingly completely random. For those of you that don't know how it works, ping pong balls essentially decide who wins this thing. There's a bunch of random 4-number combinations, and the worst teams basically have more combinations, and the winners, it's pretty straightforward. It's not rocket science, but it's not the easiest process. It took me a little while to understand how this whole thing works, but yeah, the Sharks do have the best odds, so the Sharks fans, the team, the organization has the right to be excited, but by no means. You cannot get your hopes up. We'll know probably in half an hour or so. I don't know, who has the first overall pick, who has the second, third, etc. But it's anyone's pick, right? I mean, it really could go either way. Now, the Sharks do own the rights to the Pittsburgh Penguins pick, which is projected to be number 14. It is top 10 protected, so if Pittsburgh wins the lottery or moves up a significant margin, then they'll have 72 hours to decide what they want to do with the pick, either convert it to next year's for the Sharks or keep it themselves for this year. But it's not looking like that's very likely. That's coming down to minimal percentages for that to happen. But at the end of the day, the Sharks, these next 2 years, even as of right now, have 4 first-round picks, right? Because the Vegas selection and that sorry guys, I need to clear my throat. Sorry. The Vegas selection that they acquired in the Tomas Hertl trade got them a first overall pick next season. And then, of course, last year, the Sharks had not only the number 4 overall pick, but they had the New Jersey Devils pick, which came out to be number 19. And then, in that same Hertl trade, the Sharks acquired David Edstrom, who was also a first-round pick. So the Sharks essentially had 3 first-round picks last year. They'll likely have 2 this year, and then they'll have 2 next year. And so Mike Greer, you can say all you want to say about him, but he is acquiring draft capital. Yes, it is at the cost of cornerstone pieces, Erik Karlsson, Tomas Hertl, Timo Meier, but I mean, that's what you got to do when you're rebuilding. And it's sad for the fans, but at the same time, it's exciting to get some young guns. So yeah, if you're just joining us, we're about 8 minutes to the lottery. I'll be having it up live. And it's one of those things, like I said, it's anybody's to take. I'm not going to be, I'll be disappointed if the Sharks don't get the first pick, but at the end of the day, the percentage is so low that it's like you can never really get your hopes up to begin with. Now, we saw last year, Chicago won it, and they weren't supposed to win it. We've seen other years, random teams will just jump up, but, it's anybody's, and it's really, interesting. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate the comment, man. I thought this would be a good time to stream. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, it's a big day in Sharks history. It's a big day for the Sharks because this team has been so successful, for the bulk of its history that it hasn't really had lottery situations like this recently. I mean, of course, Patrick Marleau number 2, but that was 20 plus years ago. These past few years saw the Sharks pick, in the top few picks. I mean, obviously 2022 they traded down, but you had number 4 last year, Will Smith. You had William Eklund go 7 overall, and before that, the Sharks were a contender every year. So they never were a drafting team. They were a team that usually traded their first round picks, and if they did draft in the first round, they'd be late and the players wouldn't really pan out. But this year, hoping to do something different, hoping to get Macklin Celebrini, a guy who has Bay Area ties. Father Rick Celebrini worked for the Golden State Warriors. Macklin himself played for the Junior Sharks. I mean, it feels like a storybook, great place, great fit for the young kid from Boston. But at the end of the day, I mean, people were saying the same thing about Bedard going to the Ducks last year, and that didn't happen. So not getting my hopes up. I'm going to refresh ESPN again. It will start at 3:30 on the dot, but I'm sure they'll do some intro stuff. I'll have the audio on. But yeah, guys, if you're just joining, the Sharks have the best odds, 18.5%. I actually put them in the description of this video if you do want to check that out for yourself. But it's a exciting time for prospects. And this year, I'm not going to lie, I'm not the first to say this, but the prospect pool is not the strongest from a draft standpoint. Last year you had, such a deep class, right? You have, guys, for the Sharks, you have Will Smith, who's one of the best players in, if not the best in NCAA. Then you pick a guy at 19 in Quentin Musty, who, led the OHL in many categories as, an electric player. So, that whole first round had star-studded talent. I think next year will be that too. And so for Sharks fans, are going to be rooting for Vegas to suck because we do own their pick as well, and of course our own. But at the same time, it's like, we want to make a splash in this year's draft as well. Likely we'll have 2 first overall selections, assuming that the Pittsburgh Penguins pick does not go into the top 10. It's unlikely to do so. It could. Weird things have happened. But the Sharks have the best odds, and Pittsburgh has the 14th best odds, and both selections, of course, belong to the Sharks. But San Jose in a very, tough position. The Athletic did have the Sharks having the 4th best prospect pool in hockey, and that was, I think, back in February they reported that. So stuff has changed, but you add, you get Celebrini, you're adding him to, a list of. Oh, and it looks like ESPN has the lottery up. Okay, so we're gonna cue that up. But you're adding Celebrini to, you assume he's the 1C of the future. Wingers wise, you have William Eklund, you have Quentin Musty, you have, the 2C could be Will Smith. You got Henry Thrun on the blue line. There's guys that for the Sharks right now are chipping away, doing a lot of things in the juniors that a lot of people aren't talking about. But they're going to be a big deal. I'm talking Quentin Musty, Cam Lund, in NCAA. List goes on, right? Kasper Halttunen, he played for the London Knights. Luca Cagnoni on the blue line. A lot of guys that, are kind of diamonds in the rough. And, a guy like Celebrini isn't. He's a bona fide star. And so it's time for the Sharks to get a guy who's going to make waves right away. And we don't know about him returning to college next year, what the decision is on that. We saw Bedard get drafted and immediately suit up for Chicago, but that's not a regular thing. We also saw Bedard get injured in his rookie season. He's going to win the Calder. He still had an electric year, but at the same time, these top 2, top 3, top 4 picks are usually guys who are NHL ready. Will Smith last year wasn't. We saw Adam Fantilli, Leo Carlson, Bedard all be NHL ready. Will Smith wasn't. I don't think that's a problem. He had a great NCAA season, made the national championship. But it's obviously one of those things where you don't want to rush guys' development. So it's an exciting time for prospects, especially for the Sharks. You got a lot of good prospects in this system. I already talked about some of them. I'm excited, personally. Even guys like William Eklund, who's sort of moving out of the prospect limelight and more into the everyday NHLer. He had a great, I wouldn't say great season, but he had, a breakout year. He played a full season for the first time in his career. He, had a hat trick towards the end of the year. William Eklund's a guy I think that will be in the top 6 for the Sharks and their future great teams. And, I don't think he's going to lead the team in goals or anything by any means, especially if you do have a guy like Celebrini, but he's a guy I think that will be a reliable point getter in the future. And you'll just have to see. This team has been sort of building the new regime around him, or the new team and whatnot around him. Because, when Doug Wilson stepped away, Mike Greer was inheriting kind of a rough situation. It still is. Had to fire David Quinn, the head coach, a few weeks ago, and Eklund was sort of like that first early draft piece the Sharks had in a bit. Because obviously in 2020, Sharks were set to have a very early pick, but of course, trading that to Ottawa, and that became Tim Stützle in the Erik Karlsson trade. So, yeah, we are just about seconds away, should be, from the draft lottery starting. I have it on ESPN. It says starting soon. Should be starting any second now, but I'm excited. I mean, obviously, this is not the draft. This is not a game. This isn't an event that's super highly touted or anything. But it's still a big deal. Especially, I mean, if you're picking in the if you're in the top 5 odds, it's a big deal for you. I mean, I was watching this last year, crossing my fingers that the Sharks would be able to get Bedard and pick number 1. But obviously, we know that didn't happen. Few too many points, and it looks like we're live. So I'm gonna turn the sound on.
Studios, the 2024 NHL Draft Lottery will begin.
So,
which lucky
it's
franchise
in New Jersey.
will the ping pong balls come
are
up for to give
are
them
flying.
the right to select Macklin Celebrini with the first pick overall? Celebrini played at Boston University as the reigning Hobey Baker winner for the best college hockey player.
Yeah, he won the Hobey
Hello,
Baker,
everyone.
which
Kevin
is like the
Weeks,
Heisman
Ardo Cal.
of
In 30
college
minutes,
hockey,
the fate of
the
a
MVP.
franchise will drastically change. Here are the odds.
I mean, he's
for
no
teams to
Bedard.
pick first
I'll say that, but
overall
he's
in
a
this year's draft. Now, just a reminder: if a team that
He's
is
a stud.
12th or below
There's
in
no
draft
secret.
odds wins the lottery, they'd only move up 10 spots.
There
So
was a
that's why you
leak
see
that
the
came
gap
out earlier
between the
today, but I
Blackhawks
think
at
it's been confirmed that that was just a
13.5% and the
rehearsal.
Sharks at
We did have the Sharks picking
25.5%.
first, so a
Those
lot
are
of
the
fans were
chances
excited, but
to
I
select
don't think
first
it's
overall. So, Weeksy,
credible.
what type of player will a team be getting in the consensus number 1 overall pick, Macklin Celebrini?
Well, you're getting a transformational player. A player that can impact the game in so many different ways with the skill.
I mean, yeah.
with
The thing
will
with
to
hockey too is
with the hockey IQ.
it's
the
not like
attitude,
football.
and, by the way,
when these drafts
unfazed,
come around,
came and
or
showed up
well,
NCAA
it's not like football in the
hockey
sense
out
that
of USHL
when
Chicago
you
Steel.
pick
As
a guy, it's got to be your
17-year-old
team fit. It's
for
like
my
you
guy,
got
Jay
a
Panda
top
Fulpando,
forward on the
coaching
board
him at
you're
BU.
taking.
A guy that can
You
make
only have
players
3
around him
positions
better. He
essentially.
can
You got a
finish,
forward,
generates
blue line,
offense off the rush, can
and
generate it in
so
zone.
there's
He's
a lot more
unafraid of the
room to
physical
pick. And so if
contact,
the
and
Sharks
by the
don't
way,
get the
growing
number
up
1
in a
pick,
professional sports
plenty of guys,
environment, Joe,
Caden
I
Lindstrom,
think that's
Cole
really does a
Eiserman,
great job for
Zeev
him
Buium,
of being calm, forgetting the
Artem
psychological
Levchinov. I mean,
kind
there's
of
plenty
challenge
of
that goes
guys
being a young player
that
because he's
can-
been in the environment his
that
whole
can
life.
do
Greg
some
Celebrini,
things,
his
do
father
special
works for the
things.
Golden State Warriors. Celebrini is the 4th freshman to win the Hobey Baker, set to become the first ranked.
Some of the young forwards, especially Demidov, who is very, very dynamic and who is excellent in Russia this season. For the people that I speak to that are in the KHL, they rave about his skill set, his ability to break down defenses,
Ivan Demidov as
manipulate
well.
defenders, and be
KHL
real
player,
creative
big Russian
in
guy.
open ice, as you'll see. He can also play the give-and-go game and
Another
make
guy
a lot of defenders
scouts
miss.
that
So
there as well.
that's Demidov, but I like a lot of the other defensemen, Zeev Buium, that played
Yes.
at Denver, Perek,
National championship.
Perek and Saginaw, of course, and of course Levshunov at Michigan State. So I think there are a lot
Zane
of very,
Perek
very good
is another
prospects in the
guy.
draft, especially on the back end.
Zeev Buium, he skates really well. He
Smooth with
knows
it.
how to handle the puck. He's just a terrific player. And to your
Zeev
point about
Buium.
the defenseman depth
Plenty
in
of
this
guys
draft.
in this draft that are good.
All right.
I mean, it's not last
the
year's
cards
draft
are into the studio.
by
Don't
any
drop
means,
them.
but it's-
Whatever you do, don't drop the cards. The 2024 NHL
It's a big
Draft
deal.
Lottery is coming up next.
Throw a commercial break. We should be moments away from the NHL Draft Lottery commencing. If you're just joining in, I'm a big Sharks fan, obviously, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up for anything because these things, if I've learned one thing, about these types of things, there's no guarantees ever. No matter what the odds say or whatever seems to be in your favor, there's never a guarantee with these things. Nonetheless, the Sharks have the best odds of winning the number 1 overall pick, which will be Macklin Celebrini. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I see the comment there. I'm interested to see what happens with Quentin Musty next year. I mean, he's a guy that looks NHL ready, and so we'll be awaiting his decision. I mean, there's nothing to rush at this point with the Sharks prospects. This team isn't going to be contending next year, probably the year after that, but we'll see. I mean, hopefully these prospects pan out. Likely we'll have 2 first-round selections, maybe the first overall selection this year. So we'll see what happens. We got a commercial break, and then hopefully it starts because I'm getting a little nervous, as I should be. When I woke up, I've been counting down the days to this day because, the whole season for the Sharks was gone, before the midway point. And so, at a certain point it becomes, you're not rooting for your team to win every game. You're rooting for your team to do what's best for the future. And what's doing best for the future is winning the draft lottery, getting the number 1 pick. And so the Sharks, they tanked. They've been tanking for a few years now, and it's time to finally see if that goes to something. We got a commercial break here, but then I'll have it on the draft lottery. We're just moments away. They did the little opening sequence, and it's an exciting day for fans of bad teams, while the other teams get to celebrate in having their teams in the playoffs. We get to celebrate our bad teams being bad and getting us good players. Celebrini to the Yetis. We'll see if he goes to Utah. It's very much possible. Utah with pretty good odds. They have the sixth best odds. Still feels weird saying Utah, but that's what they're called now. So we'll see what happens. The Utah hockey team, no name yet. But this is kind of the first time that Utah is being introduced like on a national NHL stage, right? Because they literally just announced that. What a weird offseason so far. But we'll see. Commercial break still in progress. I think we're about to come back. Looks like we are.
Back following the NHL draft lottery, our ESPN
We also have
doubleheader.
Hurricanes
The
Rangers game 2 today.
one
Rangers
against
obviously
the Canes,
lead
4-3.
1-0
They
in the
host
series. That
Carolina.
should be a good one at
Game 2
MSG.
at Madison Square Garden, looking to make it 6-0.
But I don't care
to
about that.
begin
We gotta
their postseason after
get our
sweeping
guy.
the
Let's
Caps
not
in
gonna
round
celebrate.
1. The Canes have struggled
But I'm
in the
trying not
Garden
to get my
lately,
hopes
losing
up.
their
It's
last
really tough.
5. That's at the top of the hour. But for
one of those
now,
things.
let's go to the beginning of the NHL draft lottery.
Okay, here we go. We're almost set to go.
In a few weeks, the eyes of the hockey world will be fixed on Las Vegas for the 2024 NHL
Vegas
entry
draft, the Sphere.
a city where the
I'll be
odds
there.
can determine if you come up short or hit the grand prize. That journey begins tonight, where the NHL draft lottery will determine
So
this
ping
year's
pong
big
balls are
winner.
deciding this, guys.
Since its
Random
inception in
combination.
1995, the fates of franchises have been decided by the randomness of bouncing ping pong balls. And sometimes teams defy the odds and walk away with a generational talent.
The Oilers will have the #1 overall draft pick in the 2015 draft.
A cornerstone to a Stanley Cup champion.
So it is Colorado jumping up from #2 to #1 and taking that first overall pick.
Or maybe one of the best to ever do it.
Almost
The
ready,
first
guys.
selection in the 2004
We're showing all the
NHL
first
entry
overall
draft
picks.
belongs
Last
to
decade or
the
so.
Washington Capitals.
So tonight, who will hit the jackpot?
Hopefully the Sharks.
Welcome inside NHL Network Studios, where the fate of a franchise could be changed forever.
showing Mike
by
Greer.
4 numbers
Looks like
on
he's at
4
SAP
separate
Center.
ping pong balls.
Along with
The
a lot of the
prize
other
that
general
awaits the
managers.
winner,
There's Pat
the right
Verbeek,
to draft Macklin
Ducks,
Celebrini,
plenty of
the
other guys
youngest
up there
player
as well
ever
on
to
the
win the
Zoom.
Hobie Baker Award at just 17.
Hobie Baker Award winner, Macklin
16
Celebrini.
team representatives
Where's he going?
are
We don't
standing
know.
by to learn the outcome of the draft lottery.
there's no one else I
San
don't
Jose
think that
is
would be
hoping to
#1 over
retain
him.
that first overall selection.
He's
while
not the
10 others
Bedard
have
of
the
the class,
chance to
but he's
take it
certainly
from
the
them.
best.
And
By a
fans,
significant
San
margin.
Jose, Chicago,
Oh, so they're showing the
Anaheim,
San
and
Jose
Columbus
watch
have
party on
gathered
TV. That's cool.
in hopes of
Up in the
extending
Bay
their
Area,
watch
Anaheim
parties
as well,
based on
Chicago
tonight's
and
results.
Columbus, the worst 4 teams of this year.
Speaking of parties, Utah hosted a great one for their new team a few weeks ago as the new franchise gets ready for their inaugural season this fall. They hold the 6th best odds to win the lottery, and what a
Utah,
story that would be. if they move
obviously,
up to
probably a
the
lot of
top
new
the
fans
draft.
watching tonight.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Butchergross from ESPN alongside prospect expert Sam Cosentino. And here he is, Macklin Richard Celebrini, the projected first overall
Hey,
pick in
Macklin
this year's
Celebrini
draft.
on the
Grew up in
broadcast. There we go.
Vancouver. Since then, you've been a bit of a hockey nomad in your teenage years, going all over this great country of ours. I'm curious, are you nervous? Are you curious? Are you excited? What's going on in your stomach right now?
Yeah, probably a mix of everything.
Mhm.
Lots of nerves, lots of excitement, just trying to soak it all up. And
Feel like game night a little bit?
A little bit.
It's interesting to
pretty
have him on the
similar,
broadcast.
actually.
When you look at the
Amongst
teams,
a lot of others.
ties to Vancouver, ties to San Francisco, even Minnesota for that matter, who did you watch growing up?
Growing up, I mainly watched the Vancouver Canucks. Growing up there,
The Canucks fan going.
childhood team,
Makes sense.
followed them along my whole
Won't be going
childhood,
there,
so yeah, that's kind of my team.
Right on. He's a legit 6'1", Good height. He's a center iceman who's electric to watch. Break down some of his videos, Sam, for us, as maybe Macklin can break down some of his own stuff as well. Why is he so good?
Macklin, what I really appreciate about your game is the smarts that we see in your game. And we've taken this
Yeah,
clip
you guys
from
can do it
World
all,
Juniors,
right?
a
You can
game
win
against
face-offs,
Latvia. You
you can
lose the
play
draw
defense.
right away. You understand that Latvia has got full possession of the
see a little
puck. So at
Austin
this
Matthews
point,
in him.
you get into your defensive posture, into the middle of the ice. And what happens? Latvia throws it right on your stick. The turnover enables you now to transition back the other way.
And he's just gonna,
so I'm
he's
thinking,
gonna lead
all
a
right,
team,
this is
right?
good
And that's the
foresight.
most
This is
important
good
thing,
structure.
especially
As
for
the
the
puck
Sharks,
goes
who
into
don't
the
really
zone,
have
we'll see Latvia does a really
a
good job
voice in
here
the
at
locker
getting
room
it
who's
out.
gonna lead the team,
Now, you
especially
start to
the
come
young
back.
guys.
You understand that Maverick Lamoureux
I
might
love
be
that.
a little bit
Like
of
William
trouble.
Eklund, he's a great player, but I
I
don't
better
think
go
he's
and
a
help
leader.
out. So the move
Yeah,
you make
he's-
here is to
he's
make
also
sure
a
that you
winger.
get down low. Mav now has an option. He swings it around the boards. Little touch pass there to Denton Matejchuk. And
I
this
think-
is
I
what
think
I
Macklin's
love.
the guy
The
you give the
thoughtfulness
seat
about,
to
hey, I'm a
pretty
left
early
shot
on.
on the right side. I'm going to go to space here. A lot
Especially
of
if
open
Couture
ice.
leaves.
Maverick or
You know,
Denton
we don't-
Matejchuk
we don't know,
recognized
but-
that. He goes off the boards, and now that
They're
allows
showing
an
some
easy
highlights. I
entry.
mean, he
Oh, yeah,
looks
by the way, I've got
the real
scored.
deal.
Braden
Macklin
Yeager right
Celebrini.
behind me. So the smarts in your game is something I really
Like
appreciate.
I've said this
But
multiple times.
is
I mean,
the
this draft is,
creativity.
I don't think
Take us
anywhere
through
near
this goal against
as
Minnesota.
good as last year's, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
got a lot of good
so I
players. I mean, if the
saw
Sharks don't pick
Shane,
first, they'll have a
he's
lot of
offside
options
there.
at 2 or 3.
Puck kind of popped up to me, so
Plenty
I
of good
decided
players,
to
good blue
kinda bat
liners.
it down,
They
try to
need blue
gain
liners.
possession through here.
We'll see. We'll see what
I
happens.
honestly, it was one of those plays where like I saw someone backdoor, but didn't really know where he was. But yeah, I just tried to get it to the backside and it landed on his tape.
Yeah, amazing stuff here. So you see LC go offside here. And then what I like is your ability to draw all the Minnesota defenders to you.
He's a
And of
playmaker
course,
too, right? He's
now
a guy
you
that
know
can
who that guy is back door. Hey, I'm
do
going
a
to
lot
get
of
it to him.
acrobatic things with
To
his
think
stick.
of exactly
He's a
where he
good
was
skater.
to get it on his table.
A lot of good upside. I mean,
Maybe a little lucky.
doesn't have
I don't think
bust
so. Amazing
written on
stuff
it,
from
let's put it
Macklin
that way. I mean,
Celebrini. That's the kind of
there's a lot
thing
of
you're
players
getting
that
if you're able
are
to
kind
pick
of
this young man
50-50.
first
He's not one
overall.
of them.
What a year at BU, second in the nation in goals, third in points, of course, wins the Hobie Baker. We never had a Hobie Baker winner go first overall, so you will be
Hobie
the
Baker
first. And
winner is
after
never won first overall.
Macklin,
It's
what
interesting.
does this draft look like, Sam?
From the high end, we're looking at a lot of defensemen and a lot of varying defensemen.
Zane
Anton
Parekh
Salayev
is a guy that I
who's
kinda
6'7",
watched,
210
in
pounds.
Saginaw.
His 11 points in the KHL, the most by
in
an
the
under
OHL, I mean,
18 skater. Then you move to
you know,
Artem Levchinov.
electric
Here's a
player,
guy
more
here
of an
who plays an
offensive-minded
excellent two-way
defenseman,
game,
but
6'2", 210
he's great
pounds,
on that
has
team.
some bump to his
Artyom
game, moves pucks
Levchinov,
well, shoots it really well,
Michigan
and will
State.
throw the big hit. And how about Zane Parekh? This guy is absolutely
Salayev as well,
crazy.
in the
33
KHL.
goals, 96 points as a defenseman. Reminds me a lot of Erik Karlsson, a right shot guy who can do it
Sharks,
all
of
over
course,
the
got
ice. One of the
Luca
most creative
Cagnoni in last year's
defensemen
draft
I've
in
ever
the
seen.
third round. So, good,
So here's a look
defense
at the
guy.
draft order, of course, determined by the regular season standings.
starring
And as
in the
mentioned,
W
San
League.
Jose has the best odds to win at 18.5%. Chicago, who moved up from 3 last year to win the Bedard lottery, have better odds tonight to make that move again. Further down the list, you'll see Pittsburgh
I really
at
hope
14.
Chicago
However,
doesn't
per the terms of the Erik Karlsson trade,
And they have their
Pittsburgh
1
will
and 2
transfer its
centers
first-round
of the
pick in
future
this year's draft
locked up.
if it remains outside of the top 10. But if they move up, they have the option of keeping it, which they would likely do, and then give San Jose their first-round pick next year. I'm joined now by NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. Good evening.
Great to be with you.
Always a great night. You got these new
Anaheim
players coming
also
into the
has 2
league this
first-round
summer at
picks,
the
but one of
draft.
them belongs
And I know
to
this year
Edmonton,
it's at a
so
very special
that one
place,
won't
very
be a lottery
unique
pick,
place to
but
have the NHL draft, unlike
2
any
West
other
Coast
before.
Pacific teams.
Not a very well-kept secret.
No.
But the 2024 Upper Deck NHL Draft will be held at Sphere, Las Vegas. The draft will be the first event televised live from the Sphere.
So they just
The
confirmed that the
2024
actual draft
will
will be in Sphere in
utilize
Vegas.
Sphere's
It's already
cutting-edge
been announced,
technologies. This will truly be a unique draft unlike any other.
There's some drone video we recently shot for you, Commissioner. I know you hadn't seen that before tonight, and that's some of that cutting-edge technology you talked about.
That's
wanna
why
be
we're
there.
having it at Sphere, Las Vegas. It's going to be great.
Yeah, you see there's the date right there, first round on the 28th, and then the rest of the draft on the 29th.
You're just joining
Thanks so
in.
much for that amazing
It's almost
announcement.
time, guys.
Enjoy the rest of the
Shoot.
proceedings.
Designed future.
Great to be with you. Well, let's remind you of the rules that were put in place for this year's draft lottery. There
Okay,
are 2
so
lottery
each
draws.
team
A
gets
team
2
will
drawings.
only be able to move up
There's,
a
of course, the
maximum
16
of 10
teams that
spots
didn't qualify
if they
for the
win
playoff.
either of them.
You only move up
So
a max of 10
16
spots,
teams,
so
only those
teams
positions
11,
1
12,
through
13,
11
14, 15,
in the
all the
pre-draft order
16,
can claim
they can't
the first
get the number
overall
1
pick.
pick.
If a team position from 12 through 16 wins the
If
draft
one of those
lottery,
teams does win
that
the lottery,
means
the
San
Sharks
Jose
will get
would
the
be
number 1
locked
pick.
in at number 1.
And you
Also,
can't win
teams
the lottery
cannot
more
win
than
the
twice
lottery
in a
more than
5-year
twice
period, so
in a
Chicago Chicago wins the
5-year
lottery,
period.
they
So
can't win
let's
it.
get started. Here's
again for
Deputy
another 3
Commissioner
years.
Bill Daly.
Good evening. Wishing each of the 16
Here we go.
NHL franchises participating in tonight's draft lottery the best of luck. Let's get this going. The 16th overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the St. Louis
So
Blues.
the Blues stay at 16. That's where they're supposed to be.
The 15th overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the
Okay.
Detroit Red Wings.
Detroit, they were supposed to be there. Now here's the Pittsburgh pick, possibly.
The 14th selection in the 2024 draft goes to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Pittsburgh. So the Sharks will pick 14.
And that pick will actually go to the San Jose Sharks. Mike Greer knows that he will have 2 first-round
So
picks.
we'll have 2 first-round
Would
picks
have moved
officially.
to next year had the Penguins got into the top 10, but they stay at 14.
And that's,
So Mike
I
Greer
can't
picks
complain. I mean,
at
Pittsburgh
14.
was supposed to be a good team coming in this year, and they underachieved.
The 13th selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the Minnesota Wild.
So no movement so far. We're through 4 picks. St. Louis, Detroit,
The
Pittsburgh,
12th
San Jose,
selection
Minnesota. Here's number
in the
12.
2024 NHL draft goes to
Philly.
the Philadelphia
Okay,
Flyers.
No movement. Here we go.
All right, so back here with 17-year-old Macklin Celebrini. I got ties older than you. Have you been on Zillow every night saying, where's
We're talking to Celebrini.
No.
No?
Wait, what's Zillow?
Oh, my goodness. All right, so you know you're going to be one of these teams coming up. It could be anyone from this point on. What's going on in your gut right now?
God, they're just
a little
making
bit
us
nervous,
nervous.
excited.
So to recap so far, number 16
looking
St.
forward
Louis,
to how this all
15
plays
Detroit,
out.
14
Pretty chill.
Pittsburgh traded to San
Way more
Jose.
chill than I would have.
I appreciate that.
And
Go ahead,
then
Bill.
Minnesota at 13 and Philadelphia at 12.
The
Here comes
11th
11.
pick in the 2024
Deputy
draft
Commissioner.
goes to the
Buffalo
Buffalo
is
Sabres.
11. No movement so far. No changes. Everything is expected.
The 10th selection
We're going
in
to
the
the top 10.
2024 draft will be made by the New Jersey Devils.
Number 10. No movement so far.
Well, at around the range of number 10, we're talking about a guy by the name of Cole Eiserman, a really polarizing prospect who at the start of the year was a projected number 2 pick.
So the Sharks
Cole
guaranteed
Eiserman
to
did
have
some
a pick in the
amazing
top
things
3
at the
and in the
under
top
18s,
14.
scored 9
well,
goals.
with the
What did that
14th
allow him to
overall
do? Allow him to surpass Cole
Can't
Caulfield
complain so far.
for
I mean,
number
you know,
1
we wanted
on
that
the
pick.
United States
It
National
was either
Training and
gonna be this year or
Development
next year, but we
Program
have the Vegas pick
all-time
next
goal
year.
leader list. You see he's in some great
we're moving
company.
into the top 10 though.
Kessel, Kane, and of
Talking
course
about
Will
Cole
Smith, who we
Eiserman,
saw
the
recently.
American forward.
Expect him to be in that 10 range. Back to you,
Guy
Deputy
that'll go in the
Commissioner.
top 10 and top 15 probably.
The 9th overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the Calgary Flames.
Okay, no movement. Everything is expected so far.
The 8th selection in the 2024 NHL draft goes to Seattle Kraken.
Seattle at 8.
The 7th overall selection in the
Here we go.
2024 NHL draft will be made by the Ottawa Senators.
Ottawa at 7.
The 6th overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft will be the property of the Utah Hockey Club.
Here we go. Utah announced for the first time. Okay. So here we go into the top 5.
The
Oh my.
5th overall selection
Okay. Gut wrench.
in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the Montreal Canadiens.
Still no movement. Everything is expected.
All right, around that 5 selections, there's 3 players that we're looking at in particular, especially with Montreal. They're probably going to lean towards a forward, and there are a couple that will be available to them there.
Montreal with the
Let's
5th
start
overall.
first with Medicine Hats. Caden Lindstrom, 6'3", 210 pounds,
Plenty
a
of good
physical
forwards for them
specimen,
to
banged
take.
up, only played 32
Talking
games,
about
but scored 27
a good
goals
prospect,
in
top
his 32
pipeline over
games.
there
And
as
how
well.
about the son of Jerome, TJ Ginla, moved
They had-
at the start of the year
Montreal's
like
the
Chris
team that had
Millette
the
and
first overall
Kelowna.
pick in
From
2022.
center to the wing, ended up with 47 goals, put up 12 points at the under 18s, maybe the
They'll
highest
pick number
riser
5
in
this year.
all of the draft class. And Sam Dickinson at 6'3",
Oh,
200
they just
pounds.
keep
He's a
panning away from
defenseman, a
everything,
guy
and it's
playing
just-
for the
it's
London
adding
Knights
to
and
the
Dale
defense.
Hunter, and a guy who can play a two-way, great game. We'll see what happens there. Back to you, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner.
The 4th pick in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay, so Columbus at 4. So now the Sharks
Down
could be
to
any of these
3.
3 picks. We're down to the number 3.
San
It's
Jose,
either Anaheim,
Chicago,
or San
Anaheim.
Jose. Who's winning the
One
draft
of
lottery?
those
Who's it
cities
going to
will
be?
the new home of Macklin Celebrini, and these are the men constructing the
throwing
rebuilds
the-
in San
the
Jose,
3,
Chicago, and
general
Anaheim. Kyle
managers up
Davidson
there,
in
Pat
Chicago,
Verbeek,
Pat Verbeek in Anaheim, Mike
Greer,
Greer in San Jose, and that's
Davidson.
the man waiting to hear where he'll go on Zillow and look for an apartment. We'll
We're
teach him what
nervous, guys.
Zillow is during the break, and when we come back, we'll Find
Okay,
out
commercial break.
the new
Okay.
home of Macklin
Perfect.
Celebrini when the 2024 draft lottery continues.
Reminder coming up next, Rangers Hurricanes Game 2. Alexis Lafreniere was the first pick overall in the 2020 draft. He's got 5 assists in 5 games this postseason. Andrei Svechnikov was the second pick in 2018. Game 2, top of the hour.
So, okay, guys, to recap, everything has been pretty much just kind of like last year. Everything down to the top 3 is in order, right? The Sharks, I can't talk right now. The Sharks, the Blackhawks, and the Ducks will. One of those teams will be taking home the number 1 pick. 2 of them will be disappointed. Although the Sharks have the best odds of those 3. Everything has been as expected, though, right? So we'll see what happens after the commercial. But the Sharks can't. I mean, as shown already, the Sharks weren't eligible to pick outside of the top 3. So one of these 3 picks will be theirs. But Anaheim missed out on the first overall pick last year. They had the best odds. They have a stacked pipeline. Obviously acquired Cutter Gauthier via trade with Philly, and he's one of the best players in the NCAA. They also have plenty of other young guys to boast about. Mason McTavish, Trevor Zegras. I don't know if I call him a prospect anymore, but he's very, very good young guy. For Chicago, you know, it's the Connor Bedard show. You add a guy like Celebrini to that mix, and they're immediately a team that's going to be on the rise at a high trajectory. So we shall see. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. Hopefully this commercial break isn't too much longer, but man, it's a scary, nerve-wracking time. See what happens. And the thing too is, like, you don't want to rush these guys into the NHL. Looks like we're coming back.
To be top of the hour, Rangers Canes Game 2. I bet all of them have Zillow downloaded on their phones. Back to Secaucus to find out who will pick first overall.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Welcome back. The 2024 draft lottery. 3 cities remain. The excitement in Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago for that man to appear on
He's only
stage.
17 years old.
A Hobey Baker winner.
6 foot,
Has
190,
never gone first
left-hander.
overall in the NHL draft.
Big center.
Where is his future home going to be?
The number 3 overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the Anaheim Ducks.
Okay, Anaheim got 3, so the Sharks are 1 or 2.
Pat Verbeek knows he picks 3rd overall as his impressive rebuild will continue. So we're down to 2. Macklin Celebrini either will be a San Jose Shark or a Chicago Blackhawk.
The first overall selection in the 2024 NHL draft belongs to the San Jose Sharks.
Let's go! Let's go!
Number 2, Chicago
Oh my
Blackhawks.
God. Oh my God.
So there it is. Jubilation
Oh my
for
God.
Mike Greer and the San Jose Sharks. Obviously, the
speechless.
fans of Anaheim are the ones who are excited.
I'm
And there
speechless, guys.
is
I was waiting to see the
San
Blackhawks
Jose
logo
Sharks on
the
top.
number 1.
Chicago Blackhawks, number 2. The order is set for the 2024 NHL draft, June 28th, 29th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Going to be like no other draft ever seen before, an
Wow.
experience that
Speechless.
only Vegas can
We
provide.
did it,
And
guys.
how about the San Jose Sharks? This is the first time in Sharks history they'll own the first
So,
overall pick in the draft.
yeah, the
Macklin
only other times
Celebrini
we had
played for the
second
San
was
Jose Junior
97
Sharks.
with Marlowe,
Once
96
upon a
with
time, he
Susan,
wore 17 at
91
BU
with
because
Thoreau
Ryan
in the
Kessler was his
expansion
boy. Couldn't
been a
wear
good
17 at
past few
BU,
years.
so went to
Smith, Muskie
71.
last year,
He's
Phil
thinking he
Beefstead,
might stick with
and
that
then William
number.
Eckler the year
And it's
before.
available in
let's
San
look at these
Jose.
comments.
And join us now is the winning
odds of a
GM,
perfect
Mike
draft,
Greer. Boy, you just must
not
be on
super
cloud
likely,
9
but
right
also
now,
not
Mike.
super-
What
I mean,
was
I
it
feel
like
like
when you
it's-
saw Bill Daly turn
I
over
don't
the
know.
Shark logo?
I don't know the math, but
I was thrilled. Yeah, it's a big moment for the organization and the fans here to be able to have
Huge
the
guys.
opportunity
Huge,
to draft
huge,
someone
huge.
like Macklin. So
Let's go, guys.
it was a tough year for us.
This is the first step.
To
This
have
is the
this
first step
opportunity
in
where we couldn't be more
building a
excited.
great team.
He's a terrier too, as you know.
That's
Early
right.
draft pick.
Mike Greer played his college hockey at BU as well. And so what are they getting in Macklin Celebrini?
Well, I think he's a 200-foot player which is rare for someone who is
Guys,
as offensively gifted as he
Drop
is.
your reactions in the
As
chat.
a 17-year-old, he plays a real complete game,
Drop your
both ends of the
reactions
ice.
down
He
below,
cares,
guys.
and I love his competitiveness. Watch him practice.
I'm stoked.
And he works
I
every
need to
drill,
tweet
goes
something
as
out.
hard as he can in every drill, wants to win every puck battle. So, I think he's a real unique player at this age, plays a full, complete game, and, we're really excited.
And of course, you also have the 14th pick as well. Yeah, he's an electric player, and what a great kid hanging around here in the studio. The fans are going to love him, Mike. Congratulations, and let the big rebuild begin. Nothing but the best to you. And look at those fans celebrating San Jose. As Mike mentioned, it's been a long couple of years, especially this year. And this is where it all begins.
I wish I could be
the
up there to
first brick,
celebrate, but
Macklin Celebrini. Sam.
I'm about 500 miles
All right,
south
thanks so much, Bucci. With the projected first overall pick, it still needs to be made official
gonna
when
do
we
it,
get to
guys.
June 28th. But it seems like a storybook ending. When you see the fans there celebrating the way they do, is there a sense of relief now that you
Anyways,
kind of have a
guys,
sense
I'm
of where
sorry.
you might
I'm
end up going?
speechless, but
Yeah, I mean,
please comment down below.
obviously San Jose
We
is
won the
an amazing
draft lottery.
and
And I'll see you guys later.
mean,
Peace out.
yeah, it's pretty cool.